area that was caused by a river, going over its banks and flooding out of town. I think the last time that happened was 30 years ago in Port Hope. And those floods have ended because the Garnaska has been reforested as a result of Zavitz's work. You used to get horrible floods like that in Port Hope every 2 years. Now these have all gone to the history books. Never happens anymore because the landscape has been restored. But you look at other parts of the world and this happens all the time. Flooding is a result of deforestation. Another example of this, close to where Mary Lou used to live. Yes, London, Ontario, was in Bacher. Now, this is a very historical, important flood because this really led to the creation of conservation authorities. A fifth of London was put under the water as a result of this flood. And John Robarts, one of the greatest premiers of Ontario, he experienced this flood as a teenager, and that was one of the reasons he was an avid conservationist. You saw his picture in the book, and why he strongly supported Zavitz's policies. This is in Norfolk County, again around 1905. Sand dune is about to, destroy a barn. This is from an area that is now called Sandbanks Provincial Park. Not all those sandbanks are natural. This was not. This was once a healthy cedar forest. It was stripped bare and animals grazed in it. And what was created was the devastation you see. And that man is there for scale. So you can exceed the extent of the sand dune devastation, the blow sand devastation. Again, this is similar to the cover of my book. You see this man here? That's to give you a sense of scale. That man is the normal height of between 5 and 6 feet. He would be standing about there. You see, 5 feet of soil was destroyed, eroded away, because this forest that once supported huge white pine trees was stripped away.
What year was that?
Again, these photos taken by Zavitz between 1905 and the First World War. Yes?
When you say the deforestation or the soil itself has been stripped away, is this through, not only through grazing, but is it through man-made, when they cut the trees? Is that, I'm trying to understand this.
Well, there's a number of factors. There's the tree cutting. There was also tree burning. This was a terrible thing. The forest would be burnt down for ashes to make soap. I mean, it was a horrible assault on the land. And then they wouldn't recover because grazing animals would eat up anything that grew up after. But it was all reversed, which is why the story, you get people think all these environmental problems are insoluble or something. But no, they can be dealt with.
Can I just interrupt for a minute?
Yes.
Rob, sandy soil is much more vulnerable to blowing away than clay soils are. So if you look at the topology of southern Ontario, where the Oak Ridge Moraine is, that's where you're getting all these blow sand areas. Clay soils aren't as damaged, but they also use fires to clear the trees, just to burn them because it was too low in northern areas. The alvar, I always thought the alvar was a vestige of the glaciation. Turns out the settlers just burned the forest and the 2 to 6, 7 years of soil that was on them, just burned it away.
Well, thank you very much for saying that, because there was a land called a film on TV Ontario called Between the Shield. And the producers of that apologized to me because they hadn't read my book at the time they wrote it. They thought all these alvars were natural as all the result of deforestation and abuse. I said, well, we hadn't, read about this stuff till we had come across your book. And they were like university professors of all people interviewed. I mean, it's really terrible how the story is not known. And this is in Norfolk County, again, an area of sandy soil, similar to the, Oak Ridge's moraine, but different. I know, I'm not 100% sure if it's even a moraine, but you see the massive stumps of the pine trees. Some of it has become desert. And unless Zavitz rescues it, it's all going to become a pile of sand. Again, this is the later became Sandbanks Provincial Park, which was opened as a park after the reforestation was completed. Now this is close to here. This is directly north of Toronto in the region of York. It's called the Vivian Forest. And this was a very historically important photograph by Zavitz because it went into the report of the Select Committee of Conservation in 1949. And this all used to be blow sand. And the people in this photograph 10 years earlier were sitting on that same stump. And you notice there's no trees in the background. All these trees, and it's amazing it only took 10 years. Talk about shake and bake reforestation. It's all growing up. And this was said, it can be done. You can turn the desert back.
Were they forests that were planted, like man-planted, or did they just regenerate themselves?
They were man-planted. And it later thinned out and became like a natural forest. But they had to plant them very closely together in that initial planting. But it shows you how astonishing, how quickly it was. And it's the same people in that photo as in the photo in the book. And there's a U of T forestry student, Brenly Robinson, wrote a fine master's thesis, and she went to that tree, the location is known, photographed it, a few years ago. And it looks just like you'd think it was a natural forest. You'd have no idea it was human planted because it was, thinned out and well managed. And a lot of the forests Zavitz created in this area are now managed by your local conservation authority. So if you want to be concerned that they're doing the right thing, that they're the people to, look at, see how they're managing these forests. Again, this is in Norfolk County. You know, think of the huge size of those pine trees and the terrible devastation. See, pine is a very tough wood, white pine, which is why it, left to give us these images. There's even a lovely industry called salvage logging of buried white pines buried under the water. The white pine still isn't rotted, and it's worthwhile to, pull them up. Very valuable wood. Again, this is Norfolk County. You see the process of desertification. Now, we're about to see, I don't know can't remember how many there are in sequence, but what I think are Zavitz's greatest photos are this graveyard in Gray County. We're not sure exactly yet where it is, although people are trying to find out. This is evocative in a number of ways. There was a change of government 1931 in Ontario, and you had a controversial figure, Mitch Hepburn, elected. And Frederick Node, who was a horrible adversary of Zavitz, was briefly deputy minister of forest and demoted him. And as a result, he had a fair amount of spare time on his hand, and he went like an old prophet out of the Bible into the desert, only he took photographs. And this is a scene in Gray County of a churchyard being invaded by blow sand. You can even see like the coffin